What's up, everybody? It's Chad. I'm back again with another episode of Ask Chad Grassy Logic. Today, I'm with my friend Kaz. Thank you so much for joining me, Kaz.
Thank you for having me, Chad. It's an honor to be here.
Of course. And, you've actually been on the show before, so it's great just to have you, solo dolo, so that way we can get some better, questions and everything. Because the last time we had Kaz on, it was actually with High Times. That was actually the last episode of season 1. When we had the High Times event here in New Mexico. Really fun. It was a great event and everything. I know you probably running around and everything during the event. I don't think I got a chance to run into you during it, but I was running around myself, and it was a little hectic. So thank you again for joining me. And yeah, today we have a great episode. He's up to some new stuff, so without further ado, let's get into it. So if you could, Kaz, for the people who don't know you, unfortunately, could you, give us a good intro of who you are and, what you're about and everything?
Absolutely. First name's Mark, last name's Kaz and I. A lot of people call me Kaz. And I don't know what part of my history we start off with, but yeah, as you mentioned, used to run the High Times Cannabis Cups from 2018 to 2023. And yeah, essentially like created the People's Choice model and brought it to New Mexico, Massachusetts, Alaska, Arizona, New Mexico, California, everywhere in between, which essentially just made cannabis competitions open to the public. Instead of it just being for the heady boys and the industry professionals and homies of homies, we made it open to everybody, whether it's people like Chad, people like Gino, me, our mothers, our, whatever. Everybody who consumes cannabis deserves the opportunity to try out a bunch of products and experience things in the way that they want to experience it, and then vote on that. So that model worked really, really well. And then we essentially, took that model and wanted to improve it and throw amazing cocktail attire red carpet events and build a beautiful trophy, that is handed out to these cultivators right there on stage. And to also, one big thing is for the judges who judge, we actually are paying them to judge now and giving them free tickets to the award show if they fully judge. So it's just a lot of better perks that we always wanted to try to do. And now no more handcuffs. We're ready to do it, and we're doing it.
Yeah.
So all that to say is we left and started Best in Grass, and now I'm fully representing our new company that me and my team are building on passion and our own savings. Didn't raise money, didn't pull together a huge board of advisors or anything. It's just a good group of people, some of which come from High Times and my team, and some of which come from other worlds. And we partnered together to start Best in Grass, and we've done about 7 states now, including New Mexico, and we have 9 total for this year. So it is non-stop.
Yeah, and it sounds like it's gonna keep going and getting busy and everything. So when's the New Mexico event happening?
So judging is already currently happening right now. So everybody has been buying their judge kits across the entire state of New Mexico. I think we had 28 stores, big stores that you might know, small stores that you might not know. Everybody's still selling those kits. I think there's a couple stores that still have kits left in certain categories, but like rosin kits flow off the shelves. Flower kits, especially our new micro licensed flower category, which was really the goal of that, was to honor the small batch craft guys to say, hey, you can also participate, and we won't request as much product as we do from the bigger commercial grows. So judging is happening now. Judging ends April 27th. So that is the big deadline for all judges out there to get their scores submitted onto the Best in Grass judging portal up until that day. And then the award show will be Tuesday, May 20th at Oasis Event Center, which is formerly the Salt Yard. They're just putting the new branding and the signs on there. But yeah, cocktail attire, red carpet, show up and show out, and it's going to be very fun. And that's where we will officially announce in person, real time, the winners of all the concentrates, flower, vape pens, edibles, you name it. That's where it all goes down.
Nice. That's cool that, you went your own route and everything too. And you have full control of how to do this, because, I wouldn't say there's, a particular wrong way to do it, but there's not a particular right way to do it either too. There's little wiggle room where you can, get creative, and that's what's the wonders of it, and, I guess it's, let's talk about both and get a little bit of history and everything going on first. Thank you for sharing about Best in Grass. I want to talk about that more, especially, the competition here in New Mexico and the other ones in the state. But, so what came up with, like, what made you really decide to, go on your own, really, when it came from the High Time thing, because, that's quite a while to be with them. If you're on my show the first season, with them, and, you guys let me go or you gave me some, media tickets, and I really appreciate that. That was a really cool event. Got to see Redman and Method Man. Of course, I'm a millennial, so, I love Redman and Method Man and Wu-Tang.
Oh, yeah.
We went out to the Rio Rancho Event Center, because I'm down south, so I had to drive up to it. And it was just a really fun time. Took all my friends, because you guys also gave tickets to vettix.com. If you guys don't know what that website is and you're a veteran, you need to use it. It's a website that gives veterans free tickets to events, concerts, sporting things, and High Times was on there. And so I got tickets, and I got my friends some tickets too. And so we all got to go and hang out and, check it out and everything. So that was really cool. And it was cool that you guys did that too, because, you got to really support the veterans and everything too. And that was something that really, I respected, because, it's option to donate those tickets or not. And you guys are like, you know what, let's give them to the vets. That's great. So it's cool. Do you plan on doing that with this one too? It's just something that came to mind right now.
Yeah, I mean, so I think there's a couple questions here that we're proposing, which are great questions. So I guess quickly on the free ticket stuff, the majority of our event is free tickets for the people who actually judge. So if people fully judge, they buy a judge kit and they fully judge by the deadline, they get 2 free tickets to the award show, and they get a credit equal to 20% of that judge kit purchase price off their next purchase at the dispensary that they shopped for after the award show. So if you were to buy an indica flower kit for $100, which actually I think we sold them for less than that, but let's say it's $100 for easy math. If you fully judge by the deadline, you're getting $20 to shop at that dispensary that you bought the kit from after the award show. And the goal is to hopefully drive a bunch of traffic and customers back to those stores, make sure those customers are getting a really good deal that Best in Grass pays for, and hopefully they buy the winning product because it's after the award show. So that's why we time it at that point. But at the end of the day, they can buy whatever they want. So we're being really generous as a new brand to give free tickets to all the judges who fully judge, to the cultivators and processors who submitted product, and to the dispensaries that were our exclusive dispensary partners to drop the judge kits. So the majority of the room, complimentary tickets. If you've supported Best in Grass, we're supporting you. We want you at the event. We want to see your face shining bright, looking sharp on that red carpet, because it is one of the best opportunities to get an amazing photo. Because I know a lot of people, we don't always have an opportunity to dress up and look nice and go to a cool event where it's like you can get a really good photo of yourself or of your team or your friends, family, whatever it is. And I've literally had people come up to me just being like, dude, I was actually really bummed that I had to throw a suit on at first. And, I didn't want to be in front of the camera because I'm just camera shy. And then they had a blast. They got all the photos. They dressed and looked really nice. Their girlfriend loved it. Their mom loved it, whatever else it was. So we're really starting to turn some hesitant people into real believers. And that's a good reminder for me to reach out to some of the same vet groups or other, underserved communities to hook them up and make sure that they are represented at this event. So would love to chat with you after and see what groups are relevant now, who's supporting, the New Mexico cannabis industry or just other ancillary organizations that would be worth us hooking up with a little packet of tickets. Let's chat about that. And then, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, we will. And to be honest, if you need me to give some away too, I'm more than willing to, especially if it's to the veterans or just the cannabis community here in New Mexico or Southern New Mexico. I really want to raise awareness to the South, because we kind of, I wouldn't say we get left out on certain things when it happens up north. They forget to tell us. And so some of us don't get the memo. And so it'd be good for us to kind of get that notification. So I can do that and help raise awareness on it, because I think that's a pretty cool event. And, I was going to ask you about the judging kits too, that it being open to the public is kind of I wouldn't say newer, but it is kind of a newish idea when it comes to these type of events, right?
Yeah, I mean, same model that I had and created at High Times. Open to the public, first come, first serve. If you are a cannabis enthusiast, or if you're somebody who's dipping your toes into cannabis and you're like, I don't want to spend all this money on trying all the best gummies in the state, we make it much more affordable. So the People's Choice model is something that I've been doing since 2020. And now I think that our new brand, it's less of the stoner bro hippie dippy vibe, which I love and I appreciate. And I still go to those types of events and participate in that type of community. But this is a little bit more approachable. And we're getting a lot of people who don't work in cannabis saying, hey, this is a brand that I can relate to. Or we're getting a lot of women who are saying, hey, this is less of that boys club stoner bro culture that we're used to in cannabis. And we love the colorful, graphics and branding. We love the, just like me and my team. Like, we are friendly, we're approachable, we have amazing communities in our lives, and we are open to various types of communities. So I am lucky enough to be able to get along with, with the corporate, suit and tie guys, and also the heady boys with the pennies on their neck. Like Bear is an amazing friend now. He's super great. He comes from a certain community, but I'm also friends with, the guys at Elevated, and no matter who I'm friends with, that'll never, ever affect the scores. That is up to the judges. It's not up to me. It's not up to sponsors. It's not up to anybody except for the people who submit their scores. And we try to make that very, very clear, because people have been scarred by competitions where there's pay to play. Somebody can just have a friend submit product and they're like, oh, cool, that's my buddy, he deserves the win, I'm going to give him to that. And I've literally had people try bribing me with a duffel bag full of cash for a trophy. And I'm like, no, like, why do you think that you can bribe somebody for a trophy? Like, this is crazy. Put in your best product, put your best foot forward, and let's let the judges, put in their honest feedback. And that's a big part of our model is, unadulterated, unsugar-coated feedback. You're not giving your product to a bud tender and they're like, oh my God, yes, we love it, give me more free weed. This is people who know that they can be honest and anonymous, and the brands get a feedback report of all of that feedback so they can see what people are saying, whether it's wonderfully positive or brutally negative. All of the people determine that, and they get their votes in. And we even look at the data to say, hey, is there any funny business going on? Is somebody voting all 10s for one brand but all 0s for another brand? Let's look at that and let's figure out if there's some nonsense going on here. But yeah, it's up to the people's choice. Same kind of model since 2020, but now we actually just host a real event, and we actually give real incentives for the judges to complete their judging, so we can get the most robust, jam-packed feedback reports for the brands who are busting their butts to put their heart and soul into creating the best flower or the best edibles or the best vape pens, concentrates, whatever that is. They deserve the spotlight, and they deserve congratulations for all their hard work.
No, 100%, and that's great that you guys are doing in other states too, because this also gives a chance to highlight some of the smaller businesses, especially here in New Mexico, because we're heavy on the micros and the mom and pops. That's really our backbone here. And so some of these places, I have no clue they're around. Like, I'll go to a dispensary somewhere back home in Alamogordo, 60 miles away from here. And I'll find some product from a micro and I'm like, oh man, this is great. Where'd it come from? So, for them to, be able to get in there, get their toes wet, and really get some live feedback from, a statewide kind of audience, that's great, because a lot of these people are just stuck in their regions, when it comes to sales. Now, some have busted out of it, but some are just stuck in the regional kind of sales thing. But this kind of gives you an all-around thing. I was going to ask you too. So when they're doing the test, when they're doing the judging, do they know what brand is coming from what, or is it a blind like a blind judging?
No, it's fully branded. We go to the state, the governing agency of each state, and we say, hey, this is the process we want to do. Will you guys allow us to strip out the branding, strip out the batch numbers or whatnot? And they're like, no, everything has to be on it. That's how we do our compliance. So the biggest thing is compliance, because I used to do blind competitions, back in the day, and it was great for a while, but then regulators started coming into dispensaries and being like, hey, what is this unbranded product? Like, we need to pull this. And it was held in quarantine. So it was A, regulation, but B, we had a lot of judges who were like, hey man, like, I don't know what this weird brown wax is. I'm a concentrate guy, I love dabbing, but like, this one looks a little bit weird. I'm not going to judge it unless you give me the brand and unless you give me the certificate of analysis or test results. So we had to start giving that information out, or they just wouldn't judge. So we moved away from the blind, and yeah, this is a real branding play and a marketing investment for the brands to get their product into the hands of retail buyers all across the state, to get their product into the hands of consumers all across the state, and for those consumers to know exactly what they're ingesting in their body and putting it in, whether it's medicine or recreational product, whatever they want to consider it. They should know what they're putting in, and they should be able to recognize what they voted for. So the next time they go to the dispensary, they can say, oh my God, I tasted that for the first time at Best in Grass. This is what I want. I love that product.
Yeah. I mean, that's cool, and thank you for that answer, because, I was kind of curious on how this was going to go for that, because course, regulations are a thing, and this is a legal market competition. It's not, a traditional market one where nothing goes and whatever goes, or the house rules essentially. So, that's cool that you guys did, do your due diligence. Cause I remember with the High Times, you did the same thing. And that's when we figured out that we could do that here in New Mexico the same way. It was because you guys paved the way at High Times. We're like, oh, that's how you do it. Okay, cool. So there's been a few other competitions that have done the exact same thing since then. So it's great that you guys are coming back as almost essentially the originators of that process here in New Mexico, because, we didn't know, and to be honest, someone had to test it, and unfortunately, fortunately, you guys were the test subjects, and it worked, and it was successful. It was a successful event, and you're able to do these, to this day, and I really do appreciate that model too, because it gives everybody an opportunity. If you want to judge this, you have the option for that. And I guess let's go into the, explain to me a little bit on the categories, how they're going to work. Is it just going to be best grow? Is it going to be indica sativa, or sedative or energetic kind of thing? What's the categories?
Categories are indica flower, sativa flower, hybrid flower, and then we have the micro licensed flower category, which people are loving.
I love that.
Then we have our non-infused pre-rolls, so just straight up flower.
Yeah.
Then we have infused pre-rolls, and in that category we had some hash holes, we had some distillate infused, keef covered, whatever else. So a nice little sample platter of all these different infused pre-rolls that will just smack you. Then we have solvent concentrates, so anything like live batter, shatter, wax, live resin, etc. And then our solventless concentrates, rosin kits. People also love those. Those flew off the shelves, and people were like pissed at us. They're like, dude, why don't you have more rosin kits? Everybody's coming to my store asking for rosin kits, and you only gave me 2 to 3 kits. And that's because, asking these processors for rosin is a bold ask. We had to ask for 100 half grams, and they're like, oh my God, 50 grams? Like, that's crazy. And it is crazy. We don't charge them. I don't want their money. I just want good products and to represent every brand across New Mexico that deserves the spotlight. Yeah. And so only 100 rosin kits were out there in the entire state, and people I think we got those out to the judges within like a few hours across the state. It was pretty incredible. And then we have our
so those already
then we have those are gone. Those have been gone since like weekend 1. Yeah, so that was awesome. So I'm really hoping for some really robust feedback reports from all the rosin heads, because those are some of the most enthusiastic cannabis consumers. So rosin kits were great. Then we have our regular vape pens, and then we have our rosin vape pen kits. And then lastly, our edible categories, which is edible gummies, edible non-gummies, so chocolates, Rice Krispie treats, cake bites, things of that nature. And lastly, beverages and syrups for anything that's, beverage, drink, mixer, whatever else. So a solid 13 categories, all spread out across the state. Every dispensary had some of every category, and people have been eating them up. I think we have maybe some edible kits and some like pre-roll or vape pen kits left out there, but I'm pretty sure like all flower and all concentrates are gone. But always worth checking on our website, bestingrass.io, to see the stores. Call a store that's near you and say, hey, you guys got any of these kits left? And now we're actually doing 25% off as of this past weekend. So literally as of Saturday, everything is 25% off, just to make sure that we get these out to the judges. Because yes, I can only pay myself and feed myself if these judge kits sell. That is literally the only way that our company makes money, except for maybe some sponsorships, which, shout out to Elevated for sponsoring. Shout out to Pre-Roller for being a big sponsor. We have a few other great sponsors on board that, we very much appreciate them for dipping their toes into the Best in Grass waters and believing in us. Also including Mango Cannabis. They were a retailer and they're a sponsor. Grower Circle has submitted product and they're a sponsor. So we have some good people coming on board and finally being like, okay, you know what? Kaz, Joey, this Best in Grass team is actually doing something worth it. And I'm excited for the award show, because that is, if there's nothing else that people like about Best in Grass, they love the award shows. So May 20th, I cannot wait to celebrate with you, Chad.
Yeah, me too. And I hope I can be there. I'm pretty sure I can with the dates and everything. Actually, I'll try to make sure I can.
You better be, or you better let me know, and I might have to change the date.
Well, I appreciate that. I will be there. I appreciate the invite and everything, and I'm excited to check this out. Because you got a lot of experience from the high time side, and you brought it over to this, and you can tell, but you put your own twist on it, and you put your own ideas with it. You're able to just make it your baby essentially, and you could tell, you're very passionate about this, and that's something that the industry really needs, is people passionate about something like this. Like, I'm passionate about advocacy and getting people information and educating. We need stuff like this because it makes the industry better, because these people get to know what's wrong or what they liked or didn't like, and then they get feedback on how well they did in the competition, and it just makes you want to do better the next year. And we need stuff like this, just having the consumer come to you in a dispensary or leave a Google review, which that's a whole different story, for that, is one thing. But when you go into a competition, it's a total different world, especially one like this, where it's a whole statewide kind of thing. And you're not just dealing with, snobby dudes. It's a wide variety of judges, going from the super heady to the super new, so you get a wide range of people telling you what's going on. So I really like that. And we didn't really get to check out the trophy either. You got it right there shining in front of me. Can we check it out a little bit more and, maybe get an explanation what goes behind it? There we go, right there. That's pretty.
Yeah, baby. This thing is heavy, hefty, shiny. We love this thing. We had a wonderful industrial designer from Ohio named Connor McDonald, who's a big cannabis enthusiast. His cannabis is a big part of his life and his part of his design and like engineering processes. So we were lucky enough to be able to contract with somebody who would probably be very, very expensive, but he loved our ethos. He loved our brand and what we were, trying to do. So he took on the project, very enthusiastically. We sent him to a grow in Ohio because that's where he lives. And he went to the grow. He chatted with the cultivators. They talked about, hey, the bottom, the roots are sprouting out. And I know this background doesn't really allow me to fully show it, but like roots sprouting out of the bottom, coming all the way up to the top as if it's the top of the plant, trimming this trophy just at 45 degrees, just like they trim plants. And then this is a grinder at the front of it. Which is, just a little fun play on, grinding up weed. Things that we all know and love. And what I grew up on is grinding up weed and rolling joints. That is my bread and butter through and through. I've been a flower guy ever since I was 15 years old. And we got the best in grass right there. The brand, the company, the product, and the category goes right there on the plaque. We have a gold for first place. We have a silver for second place.
Oh, got different ones. Hell yeah.
Yep. And then we got bronze, which is almost like a rose gold for third place.
Still pretty.
So no more little medallions for second and third. They get real trophies, same exact thing, just different color. And people are loving these things. I've had grown men tear up in my arms after winning one of these trophies on stage. And it is like one of the best parts of my job. A, grow tours and meeting cultivators. And B, is handing out these trophies to people who really deserve it and really have put their passion into this, and now they're finally getting the spotlight.
Yeah, no, that's great, and thank you for sharing that with me. I had no clue that you had the the whole Olympic style gold, bronze, silver. So that's cool, and that is a beautiful like rose gold kind of thing, and they're just beautiful trophies all together. And that's so clever with the grinder thing. I love that. At first I was like, oh, kind of like the inside of a stem. I was like, oh, grinder. Okay, that makes sense.
Grinder.
Yeah, grinder. I love that, dude. And they're beautiful. Are they metal?
They are pewter and zinc. So very durable, very sturdy. And they have the coating of that color. So yeah, this thing is like, we haven't even weighed it yet, but I could do a workout with this thing.
It looks like it. Pewter ain't light, so yeah, that's that's great. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. That's cool. And good luck to all of you out there that are competing. I had no clue that most of the judges kits were already out. We're already pretty much sold out and everything. So good luck to you all who are competing. I look forward to seeing these trophies go out to the real people in real time. When it comes to it and everything. So I was going to ask you, what keeps you motivated to do these things and everything? Everyone has their own like motivation when it comes to the cannabis industry. What's yours?
It's a great question. It's probably a multi-part question, but just as a cannabis consumer, like I smoke weed every night. It's my guilty pleasure, or not even guilty at this point, but it's just a pleasure for me. I'm go. I'm high volume of work all throughout the day, and everything is just running crazy. And then at the end of the night, it's just me and the plant sitting down, enjoying a joint or a dab, hit or whatever else it is. And it's just like really brings me to peace. So I really appreciate the plant in general. And I'm learning about it every single day. I've been in this industry for 6-7 years now, but I'm still learning different things. I mean, the regulations are changing every day. New brands and players are coming up. New, categories and product types are coming up. And even with rosin, like I never cared to dab until like last year or 2 years ago. And then I got a Carta, Focus V Carta. And, my counterpart, Joey, who's a really big, cultivator and knows everything about washing and everything. He was like, dude, you got to get on the dab train. And now I love dabbing, and that gives me a different experience. And it's great. So A, loving the plant, but B is also, there's just like, I know that the cannabis industry is just so saturated and everybody thinks they're the best. And it's like, I have friends who hit me up all the time being like, yo, like I'm in Montana, I'm in Colorado, what brands are good out here? And I like actually being able to have some of the answers. And I don't always agree with the winners of Best in Grass or other competitions, but it's not up to me. Somebody might really love a live resin vape over a rosin vape. Somebody might really love a sugar over a wax, or this flower over another flower. Everybody has different tastes. Everybody has a different body, different cannabinoid, endocannabinoid system. And I like helping brands get awarded when they're deserving of it. And I like helping consumers integrate cannabis into their lives in whatever way they so choose, if they so choose, in the best way possible. And I've heard way too many stories of people saying, "Oh no, I don't smoke, I don't do cannabis." Oh, why? Oh, because somebody gave me a crazy edible when I was in high school, and I flipped out and thought I was going to die, so I never touched it. And I was like, okay, so you had an idiot who was like, "Yeah, dude, take this 50 milligrams for your first time ever." Of course, Or oh, somebody made me milk a bong, and I got way too high and I freaked out. It's like, let's figure out ways to where, obviously, everybody's trying to remove the stigma. Everybody's trying to figure out, how do I shop at a dispensary? What do I ask for? What do I look for? So hopefully these judging processes will help people identify it on their own. And then our reports go back to the brands to help them learn from the feedback. And then finally, the results of the winners help people say, you know what? 2,000 people have judged, 2,600 people have judged, and these people voted for the best rosin, and these people voted for the best edible gummies. Let me try this out and see if this will work for me. And that is what we hope to get to. We hope to have more people spend time, money, effort, and their political or whatever other power and resources to lift this cannabis industry up, so we are struggling less day after day like we all do with the taxes, the regulations, the metric or BioTrack. Everything involved is just so crazy. So it's like, how do we change that? And hopefully this is a little piece of that.
Yeah, and I'm glad that someone is doing that. Now, there's a bunch of people trying to do this right now. Of course, things will settle in a few years, and what's left is what's left. And I hope you guys are one of them that's left too. But the like the saturation thing, that's such a a huge thing here in New Mexico, and I'm sure you've heard it many times, and you've heard many sides of the solution to it. But just having something like this, really lessens the burden, and really brings us back to a community stance too. Makes us realize and remember why we're doing this, like why we're here, especially when you go to the ceremonies, you see everybody there dressed up, and how much everyone really, worked hard on their products all year, and you get to see that payout, at the end. So that's going to be cool. And, good luck to you on it. I will be there. So it'd be great to, see you, shake hands and all that good stuff. We'll take some pictures and all that good stuff. We'll do some content. I look forward to, seeing the winners and everything. And like I said, good luck to you all, that, are competing in this year. And, this is going to be an annual thing, right? It's not going to be biannual or anything, or just annual.
Yeah. I mean, as long as New Mexico likes us, as long as everybody judges, and as long as all the dispensaries pay their bills, and the award show goes well and it's well attended, then yes, we want to get feedback from all the judges and all the cultivators and processors and say, hey, did you like this? Would you do it again next year? Okay, great. Let's start planning next year.
Yeah. Dope. Yeah. And that's great that you're going to do that feedback and everything. Cause some people don't do that, they just keep going, and it's like, why isn't this going well? You're not listening to anybody.
Exactly.
So
they need to listen.
Well, is there anything that you want to add or, tell people before we move on to the next topic?
Next topic, or is this the conclusion of like my segment.
This conclusion of your segment, they'll go on to the next topic.
Okay, cool. So essentially, we love New Mexico. We appreciate everybody who's supporting us. You know, we're a new brand. We have a lot of work to do to build ourselves out. So follow us on Instagram, bestingrass.io _. You know, check out our website, bestingrass.io. That'll be more information about the New Mexico timing of judging deadlines, where they can find judge kits for whatever is left out there, and then also the award show ticket links. Would love to see everybody out there. Check us out. It is a $20 ticket, and I promise you it is worth it just to be there and hang out and, you know, kick back and, you know, see some familiar faces or maybe meet some new faces. But yeah, we're running and gunning 9 states this year. Follow us on the journey. And Chad, please keep being you and keep doing what you do, because we need more people like you who are helping to get the word out about what is going on, you know, especially in places like New Mexico, where I know a lot of people are like, oh, there's nothing fun here and there's never anything going on and whatever else. Like, this is a platform to where people can be educated on what is going on and how they can be a part of that. So hopefully, you know, I can help push more traffic and promotion towards you guys with this podcast and let people know that you are, you know, helping the cannabis industry and probably more other hospitality or Hospitaly-THC industries out there. So yes. Appreciate you having me on. Shout out to you guys and everybody in New Mexico, and we're very much looking forward to announcing the winners on May 20th.
Cool and awesome. And I don't want you to go anywhere. I want you a part of these conversations that we continue on the podcast too. So thank you so much, and thank you so much for sharing that. And thank you so much for those kind words. That was really, you know, nice of you. And yeah, I try to do what I can to help my fellow New Mexicans and everything like that. So without further ado, let's go on to the next topics, because I'm excited to talk with you to you about these and everything, because I'm sure you have some great opinions on these stuffs and everything. So let's talk about this. So THC, it's a sales gimmick, and I've said that many times. I'm gonna kick this horse till it's powder, till it's nothing else, until it turns into some kind of mineral. So THC is a sales gimmick, and I've talked about this last year. I've talked about it a few times on my social medias and all that stuff, but it kind of seems that it's slowly, very slowly starting to catch on with certain people. Now, it's not going to be a huge majority yet, but I'm starting to see that conversation pop up more, and I'm starting to see more bigger like social media accounts start to talk about it too. You know, like even the Beard Bros or something like that. You know, they were talking about something similar the other day, and a couple other accounts I've been seeing. So, you know, I really wanted to talk about it because we need to keep this conversation going so that people understand, because maybe people didn't see that episode or, you know, see my content, that, you know, THC isn't everything, because, you know, there's so much in the cannabis plant. There's so much more that we're learning about it that we can't really solely just focus on one thing. You know, there's so many things that this plant can be used for, that why would we just focus on just THC? So my thing is that, you know, THC is just a sales gimmick. You go into a dispensary, you see it, you know, 30% THC, it's, you know, $12 a gram, or, you know, $10 a gram. But you see something 16% THC, it's going to be like $8, maybe $9 a gram, you know, just, you know, throwing some numbers out there. It's going to be a little cheaper. But what they don't tell you, you know, you can see it with the COA, is maybe that 16%er is a 3% on the terps, and that 30% is maybe a 1%. So it's not going to taste as well. So your experience is going to differ between those two exponentially. So that's why I'm saying THC doesn't mean everything. Yeah, you know, we've known for years, and we were told for years, and science had this, that, you know, THC is a psychoactive compound. It's what gets you high. It's the only thing we need to worry about. So then we have products like distillate that, you know, is pretty much just pure THC, really nothing much else in it, and you're just getting that straight to the head. And some people are wondering why isn't cannabis really working for me anymore? Well, for one, you're just, you know, pretty much shotgunning THC to the, you know, cannabinoid receptors in your whole body. And two, there's nothing else in it. It's just THC, you know, when there's so much more. And to be honest, it's not all our fault. You know, this is just newer science coming out, and it's going to take us time to get rid of the old science and replace with the new. So what's your experience, you know, with like this whole THC thing, and what's your opinion on it too?
You make a lot of great points, and yes, it is a big crutch in our industry. You know, it's like I'm trying to, as much as I hate relating cannabis to alcohol, you know, it's people want to shop for, you know, maybe a bottle of vodka, and some people want a beer, and even within the beer drinkers, some people want a low alcohol content beer, or maybe they want zero content beer, but they enjoy the flavor, they enjoy the social camaraderie of it, and they want to have some type of beverage. So I think exactly what you said, people need to be taking a full spectrum look at what they're buying. And it's not just THC percentages, it's terp profiles, it's also the strain, it's the producer, it's the ingredients in the edibles, or anything. And I think we at Best in Grass are trying to hopefully educate people through our judging portal of like, nothing is related to THC percentage, but it's related to aesthetics, aroma, taste, burnability, effects. And then there's terpene profile questions. And then there's mood and effect based questions. So nothing has to do with, except for effectiveness, how high did this get you? And we say effectiveness because, all right, if somebody knows that their threshold is 500 or 50 milligrams of THC, if they took a 10 milligram gummy, is that giving them a 10 milligram high, or is it for some reason not? What is the effectiveness? Did they smoke a joint and they like barely felt anything, or they felt it, felt a lot of effectiveness on that strain? Those are things that are helpful to know. And then we want comments on that to say, okay, yes, I got super high, but like, it wasn't the great high. It was anxiety. I had paranoia, but I was super high, or I didn't get super high, but I was able to function. I was able to write, a journal entry, or write an email, or take my dog on a walk instead of being like stuck to the couch. So we want comments on experience, and we want to hopefully bring that back to the cultivators and processors and dispensaries to say like, hey, it's not all about THC percentages, because a lot of people in my community, they don't want to, a lot of people complain like, this weed gets me too high now. Where can I find lower THC? Where can I find something that's not going to, put me out for the count? And especially when people are like, a lot of people like to get crossfaded. They want to have a couple drinks and then they want to smoke a joint at night. But sometimes a certain joint or a certain product will turn their world upside down unless it is, low THC. So yeah, I think brands should start indicating terp profiles or terp percentages on their packaging, or just other kind of like key highlights of their products instead of just THC percentage. And hopefully that'll educate retailers. And I think that's the biggest thing, is retailers are the ones in trouble. They're at fault for saying, oh, I'm not going to buy this because it's not the THC percentage threshold, or I'm going to pay you less because it didn't hit my THC percentage threshold. So I think it's people like you and I and the brands educating the consumers, so that consumers are coming into stores and saying, I don't care about THC percentage. I want something that's going to put me to sleep, or something that's going to, give me stimulation, or help me write a book, or whatever else their end goal is. That's what they should be asking for. And then retailers need to start adjusting their menus and their promotions and the way that they buy products instead of just off THC percentages. That's the hope.
Yeah. Yeah. And you nailed it on the head there, with like your competition. Like I said, this changes the industry, this makes sure that people have a better quality product, and it goes into this threshold. You're not putting THC numbers or, focusing on THC numbers, it's on effects, taste, your whole around experience, with that product. And that's great, because some people, they just get so narrow sighted, and, it's not everyone's fault. Like I said, we're still learning about this plant, just maybe 10, 15 years ago, CBD was like the whole thing that we kind of just discovered. It was like, oh my God, what is this? And now we got the CBG, CBN, CBC, THCV. The compounds are almost endless, it feels like. Even the dreaded Delta 8 is in cannabis naturally, just in very, very minute quantities. So, we have all of these vast things that we can really rely on, but we shouldn't just separate ones and rely on it. Now we can make certain ones higher, like maybe we need something with a higher CBN, or or CBG, to help you during the day or something like that. Maybe you need to raise those levels a little bit. That way that THC can come down and can kind of get a little bit of more of a medicinal effect for certain people, because not everybody just wants to be put on their ass, like you said, or not everybody wants to smoke that joint and be just stuck there. They just want that little bit of a head change. But for some other people, that's medicating, and that's you getting in and finding relief. And that's why I wanted to bring this up, because even some of the terpenes are being found to have some kind of medicinal benefits and kind of affect you in a certain way. And so that's why even I say, when I smoke 16 percenters and that has like a 3% terpene profile on it, it kicks my ass. It medicates the living shit out of me. And to be honest, I'm not to the point where I'm like, oh, but it's like, this is nice, like this is what I remember it being, you know what I mean? And like, this is what those old heads were talking about, the the weed of their grandfather, of their fathers, like not the today cannabis, that's like 8,000 THC percentages on flower or whatever they're trying to claim these days. That's, like
Yeah.
ridiculous. And to be honest, it also, creates this weird thing that we have at the testing facilities where they're allowing this, because a lot of them are allowed a 10 to 20% variance in their numbers. So they're leaning on the higher percentage for a lot of these numbers and, really duping the customer because they're getting paid. And, I can't blame them. This is business. But at the same time, it shouldn't be on the backs of the customers like that. We shouldn't be being lied to essentially just so they can make their money, and just so like, oh, yeah, you want the THC. And then everywhere I go, well, I had one that was 30% THC and this and this and this. And I'm kind of like, yeah, but was it enjoyable? Like, did it taste good? Was it rough? Like, what did you put it out because it just got you too high? Like, what are we going on off here? So I really hope that the bud tenders here in New Mexico continue to educate a lot of the customers, because a lot of them here in New Mexico are doing a fantastic job. And they're the ones at the forefront in the trenches, educating these people. I'll put the information out and they go out there and they push it. And, it's not up to them whether the customer sticks with that information or not, but the more that they continue to educate the customer and using this correct information, the more it's going to stick with them in the future. And who knows, they might get a stick up, a wild hair up their ass and go, you know what? I want to try that 15%er he was talking about that said that will put me in the couch. And then they try it and come back. That tasted amazing. I smoked it halfway because I didn't want to finish it all. I wanted it for the morning. Like I was medicated enough to, like it's an all around experience that these people need and want, not just the I'm stoned as shit, because that gets old after a while, like you want that experience, that whole entourage effect, as people call it, like I want those flavors. And we're coming out, we're figuring out that not all terpenes are terpenes. Some of them are Tropicana sulfurs, some are scatoli, they have different names and different categories. We're learning more. And the more that we learn, the more that we need to, like I said, disregard the old information for the new one. And we'll become better consumers. We'll have better products on the shelves, and with the help of competitions and everything, and people just being transparent, I think that we're on the way and path to having great cannabis. And especially here in New Mexico with the micros, that they are leaning more on the flavors and the experience versus the higher THC percentages of like 30-40% for flower. That's just at one point, when is it too much? And we're starting to see a lot of states start to worry and limit people on THC percentages. I think Colorado wants or did go to 25 for the age of use for cannabis, or there's talks of it, which to me is a little worrisome, because it should be a personal choice at that point. Yeah, your brain isn't fully matured, but no one's brain is at 21, but yet you're allowed to use cigarettes and drink alcohol, which is far worse substances than cannabis. But those worries will start to go away naturally if we naturally as an industry bring those numbers down ourselves and say, okay, I understand that there is a limit on where we need to be with this. Yes, certain people do need high THC, and let me say that, sure, like cancer patients, they need the high THC, fighting cancer, all that good stuff, or people who are dealing with pain. I get that. But the regular common consumer, everyday run-of-the-mill person, they most likely won't. So there just needs to be something for everybody in that sense. And I think that this is what this does, is it leaves it for the patient, but also the consumer on every level, the super heady guy to the super entry guy. And sometimes heady dudes don't want the crazy stuff. Sometimes they just want a good experience, and, I hope that this continues. And I just wanted to point it out that things are changing, and I'm starting to see it a little bit. And the conversations that I'm hearing in everyday conversations when it comes to cannabis, those are changing too. And I don't know, have you heard, similar changes yourself when it comes to that?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen it literally in certain states where people are actually starting to put the terp profiles and the terp percentages on their packaging. So they can say, hey guys, look at this instead of this. This is required. And oftentimes labs will fudge numbers because they want more clients. But this is where we shine. This is our flavor. This is our aroma. This is your entourage effect. Look at this. And by this, that's the terp profiles, limonene, myrcene, beta-caryophyllene, whatever else, and the terp percentages. So hopefully that can start being more highlighted and represented by the brands. But yeah, I think, people in the industry know, hey, we need to change. We need to change our education. It's just really about people being willing to learn and excited to learn and educate themselves on, okay, I need to change my frame of mind from just like shopping for the cheapest stuff or shopping for the highest percentage of THC stuff. And yeah, I think, again, we're not the end all be all of changing people's lives, but we've definitely got a lot of testimonials from people who are like, hey, I had no idea why this weed is $15 or $20 more an eighth, or what the difference was between live resin and rosin. But like, I got a Judge kit and I actually was able to experience that because, again, our kits are really well priced in terms of the unit cost per item in there. So like if a gram of rosin is usually $20, we're probably selling it for $8, and I know those are obviously different numbers, but we do 40 to 60% off the market value. So if somebody's like, oh man, like I have $50 to spend at the end of the week every week, and all I can get is 5 pre-rolls. Well, now they can get maybe a larger pack of something, or they're realizing why instead of getting 5 not so great pre-rolls, they can get 3 really great pre-rolls and get 2 sessions out of each of those pre-rolls for the same price and for a much better experience, to where now they're going to bed better, or they're waking up better, or they're doing their work better, or whatever else it is. But the experience is better and more long lasting, and just making people walk away saying, I had a really good experience with my cannabis consumption.
Yeah. And, we deal with a lot of inconsistent cannabis too, as well. It's kind of everywhere in the sense. So, going off of not just THC and other things is going to help us out, with this whole consistency thing. And I think we'll get there one day. But right now we're still in that learning stage and shit. Like we're still learning something about cannabis every week. I feel like comes out, that we're learning
every
about
day.
So, it's a never ending thing. And when I was in interrogator school in the Army, one of my instructors told me that the day you learn everything about this job is the day you die. And to be honest, I believe that about most jobs. And to this plant, that we're just learning about, I'm probably not going to learn everything about this plant to the day I die too. And to be honest, if you love this plant, that should be your mindset too. Always be learning. Don't ever stop learning, because the day you stop learning is the day that you give up. So
true that.
I'll leave the conversation on that one there. Do you have anything before we move on to our very last topic of the day? And then I'll let you get on, because I know you're a busy man. You got a lot of stuff to do, a lot of states to set up and everything.
No, I think that's a great topic to discuss. I feel good and ready for the last topic.
Right. And this one right here, I feel is like I wouldn't say a newer topic, but it's something newer here for New Mexico, because we're really starting to get more. Let me get that focus back. But like, it's not focused. Oh, well. I know, right? Woo. We'll get it there. But the consumption lounges here in New Mexico are really starting to take shape. We're really starting to see them kind of find their niche and find what the consumer wants. And the consumer is kind of trying to realize what they want to, and realize that they can even do this in the first place. So one thing that I have noticed, though, is people are mixing up retail and hospitality. And they're two different things. They're almost two different industries, retail versus hospitality. Bars, restaurants, freaking hotels. All of those are hospitality. You're going somewhere and you're paying for an experience on top of whatever item else that comes with it. Even like a theme park. I'm not going there because of the $15 burger is great. I'm going there because I want to ride the rides. I want to see whatever attraction they have. I want to go on the Jurassic Park new ride or whatever, go to Harry Potter land, whatever it may be. I'm going there for that. But they don't stop there at that experience. When you do go get that $15 burger, you're getting an experience on top of that too. That like the hospitality doesn't end, is what I'm trying to say. Is they keep going with the hospitality. It's like, well, we're going to give you hospitality here, and when you eat, and even when you go pee, there's going to be some hospitality too. Like even some of the bathrooms sometimes blow me away when I go to some of them. Like, oh, this is cool. Like a little Mickey towel holder or something random there. Or something. So the hospitality thing doesn't stop, and there's a lot of thoughts that go into this. But here in New Mexico, we're trying to figure out how to make these consumption lounges profitable. And I keep telling people, if you go into this thinking that this is retail, you lost already. Because I've had a few people argue with me, because I'm not a fan of charging people before going into the consumption lounge. That'd be like me having to buy a drink before I go into the bar and having the drink in my hand before I physically walk into the bar. And it just doesn't really make any sense. And it's not hospitable at all. It's just a straight retail transaction. And to be honest, it deters most people than anything. Like most people are going to want to just go into an establishment, figure out, maybe talk to their friends for a few minutes, then go maybe order something at the bar and, you know, get what they're going to get. But, you know, forcing them to buy something before they go in. What if I'm on a date and you're forcing my date to pay for her own stuff when that wasn't the plan, and you just kind of ruined my date, you know, or something like that. So like, you know, you got to be hospitable. And some places have gone belly up because they thought this is retail. Get in, smoke your shit, get out, you know, kind of like, whoa, that's not very welcoming at all. And you know, I haven't been to those places personally where it's, you know, exactly like that, but I have been to ones where you got to buy something before you go in, and it's kind of like a weird transaction. Then, you know, it's like, well, can I have my friends just show up, or do they have to buy too? It's like, no, they got to buy before they go in too. And you're like, well, what if like my friend's broke and I was going to buy him some doobies and stuff like you buy your friend drinks, you know, like I'm spending the money, like he doesn't have to spend the money. You're still making money at the end of the day. So, I mean, have you really been able to, with that being said, have you really been able to experience a lot of consumption lounges, or I don't know, what state are you in anyway right now?
Right. I'm based in Los Angeles, California. There's
Okay, cool.
some amazing consumption lounges here. It is far above what I've seen in some other places. But New Mexico, I mean, has some great ones. Enchanted Botanicals, I've loved that. I've come back there every time I go to New Mexico. I think, you know, and I don't know if it's regulations or if it's just the dispensary's kind of own rules of what you're saying. Like, hey, you got to buy something before you go in. But yeah, I also think that's a little, yeah, like I there's validity in that. It's like, hey, we don't want people just like coming and chilling and bringing their own shit into the consumption lounge. So like, hey, support us, buy something, and then you can go in. We, you know, they've obviously spent time, money, and resources to build a safe haven for people to consume where maybe otherwise they don't have a place. So I think there's validity and there's something to think about in terms of that. But yeah, I mean, like, it's all about the staff and it's all about the way that you're presenting and welcoming your brand and company when customers are coming in. I mean, think about a restaurant. You have this wonderful host at the door. Hey, welcome. How can we help you? Things like that. And then you have the waiter or server who's like, hey, like, welcome. Like, they're friendly. They're professional. And you don't always see that at dispensaries. You often see, you know, bud tenders or greeters or whoever else just being like very transactional. You know, they don't care. They're paid an hourly rate and they're not trained to be fun, friendly, approachable, and helpful. Not to say that's everybody. There's some amazing bud tenders and hourly employees at places that deserve an enormous promotion. But then there's also people, and I'm like, how do you have a job? You know, like, you're not educated on how to talk about products. You're not welcoming. You're on your phone. Like, what? Like, this is a sale. I am a potential sale. I might walk away spending $5, or I might walk away spending $50, and that's up to you. But bud tenders don't care because they don't get incentivized typically. You know, they don't get commission. They don't get a bonus or whatever. So I think that trickles down into the consumption portion of, you know, I think having dedicated staff where it's like, okay, if you're coming in for retail, you're experiencing one thing. If you're coming into the consumption lounge, welcome to our world of hospitality. We are greeting you with open arms. Yes, please take this seat. Do you prefer a booth? Do you want a high top? Okay, are you guys dabbing? Because we have this very knowledgeable dabber who's giving out dabs, and that's one type of person. But then we also have this wonderful server who's going to come by and treat you like royalty and say, hey, can we get you guys anything great? We have a really good flower strain that's on our menu right now, or we have this incredible deal if you're looking to be cost effective. Here's our options. And just give them that presentation. You know, I have to do that all the time when I'm calling random people that I'm a stranger to them and I'm trying to sell them on something. And I'm not like, yo, it's good, man. Like, you heard about us? All right, cool. Like, what's up? Like, I have to be like, oh, like, where are you from? What's the deal? Like, I've heard good things. I've done research about you. Like, we have to be hospitable. People want to work with or spend their dollars with people that they like and that they, you know, believe in their brand and their ethos. So yes, I think, it is tough to make money as a consumption lounge. It's varying models. Are you selling food and drink? Are you only selling cannabis, you know, at the door and then you can walk in and consume that? Or are you able to actually sell at the table and make a more service-oriented experience? So depending on the state, depending on the regulations, depending on the type of business, it will range. But, you know, like, big shout out to the Woods here in Los Angeles. There's koi ponds. There's different fun little private areas. You can decide to smoke and meet new friends in a communal area, or you can decide to come with a date or a group of people and be like, this is my reserved area and I don't want to be bothered by other people, but I just got a really good, dab at the door. And some people will say, hey, if you buy something, you can still bring in other things. Or maybe it's a corkage fee, or they think they call it like there's balloons. I wonder what the other fee, what it's called, but you can bring your own weed for a certain cost, or you buy some, at the lounge. So
yeah,
I'm hoping more licenses come up. I'm hoping that, this becomes a little bit more prevalent, because competition breeds better quality. So if there's more lounges in New Mexico or across the country, people will be like, oh man, like I need to be better. I need in order to keep my business or to capture new customers, I need to do this. I need to hire better staff. I need to have wider range of, prices or quality of products on my shelves, and maybe offer, better things. Cool. You buy a pre-roll, you're getting a basket of fries, or you buy a dab, you're getting a hamburger, or, whatever else that they can provide. Hey, here's a free rig. Here's a something to use so that people are incentivized and they're excited about coming into a lounge, instead of just, cool, I bought weed and now I can either smoke here or I can smoke in the comfort of my own home. I'm mostly going to choose the comfort of my own home, unless there's like a gathering or something really special about that lounge.
Yeah. And, here in Las Cruces, we only have two. One's more like a dive bar feel, and the other one's like a restaurant, sports bar kind of thing. They have, and both of them have events all the time. Puff and Paints. They'll have bingo night. They'll have movie night. They'll show a game. They'll have, both of them had like some of the Bone Thugs come and do some stuff and, really bring people over. Or, we'll have certain events. Actually, we had a farmer's market at one of them here in Las Cruces. They invited a bunch of micro producers. They transferred all their stuff to that place, and then they offered out penny samples. And so you got to try a bunch of their cannabis, and you're able to buy it there, talk to the farmers, smoke with them, try some more of their stuff, or, whatever. And then you also had the lounge stuff. And I've been noticing at the lounge, I actually had Donna from the 420 collections on a couple of weeks ago. And I asked her, I was like, how many drinks are you guys going through a week now? She said about 250 a week is what they're going through, which is
Nice.
quite a bit, especially for, you don't really expect drinks to be that popular, but man, they are popular. And every time I go in, I usually see somebody with a cannabis drink. And, that's one thing that, they've really, really separated themselves from other people, is that, really focusing on the drink, because they can make them there. So when they run out, they're like, give us about 15 minutes. We'll have some ready for you guys. And that's something that's great. The hospitality part. It's like, sorry, you ran out. We're making more right now. And the customer's like, heck yeah, we're going to stay and wait. And I know I've gone in there intending to spend $50, but walking out spending about $150, because of the experience that I got there. It was a fun time. The environment was great. The food was good. Like I spent 3 hours there. I go and have meetings there. Just for the fact that, it's worth taking people to go to these places. And here in New Mexico, I was on SM 105, which was, changing our medical cannabis laws. And this is where we came up with the consumption lounges for New Mexico. And I was actually on that group. And here it was for the patients, anywhere and everywhere, and you're also supposed to be able to store your product there on location. That is still the case to this day, and you can do that. There's only a couple in New Mexico that are doing this. And I feel that the places near Texas are the ones that are going to benefit the most, because a lot of those people come back frequently. And places like in Rio Doso, which actually they're one of the ones that do this, they do have lockers there, because a lot of Texans come into that place. And to be honest, I think 25% of the city there is like, doesn't live there. It's like a Texan resident that bought a house there. It's a vacation home. And so these people, some of them don't want to go back to Texas with this product. They don't want to cross that state line. So they have a locker there. They store their product. They store their device. It's safe, and you go about your business. And I really hope to see that more too. And to be honest, the consumption lounges are the answer to people smoking in the park, the answer to people smoking in random places in the street. There's a reason why people get all upset, like, oh, I smell weed everywhere. It's like, well, they don't have anywhere to smoke it. The consumption lounges are the answer. And unfortunately, certain government entities, especially here in New Mexico, are kind of against them because of the stigma that cannabis has. And they make it a lot harder for them to open. And that's unfortunate, because we would have less of this cannabis smoke smell everywhere if we had more consumption lounge options for people. That is the answer to that issue. But for some reason, you say consumption lounge and people get a little weird about it, but once they actually go and experience it, oh man, they want to go back all the time. So, I really hope to really experience that. And maybe when you're in Albuquerque, we can go and hang out at a consumption lounge and, check it out and everything too. And, I found a couple more that maybe you'd enjoy yourself too, like a coffee shop style kind of one. I think would be really cool to show off.
I would love that, man. Yeah, we definitely need to kick it. And I need to explore more of all around New Mexico. I haven't made it to South New Mexico yet, but we have several partners and friends out there, so you're on that list. But yeah, I mean, we'll be back in Albuquerque for the award show, and we're kind of just like in and out just to make sure that we can move on to our next competition right after that. But bring everybody from South New Mexico. Let's have them at the event. Let's have these real discussions about what New Mexico wants to see from cultivators, from processors, from lounges, from dispensaries, from consumers alike. We all need to get feedback. And I think the people who will succeed in this world are the people who are open to really taking harsh and honest feedback and actually putting that into place. And not everybody's advice or feedback is what you should take and say, okay, this is what I need to do, but it's worth hearing out. So yeah, like being able to have people like you who are working on some of the regulations or being there to just voice your concerns for the community is, I think, very helpful. And I hope to have more lounges, that will just do a better job and welcome more people in from all walks of life. Because there's certainly a huge community of people who are like, cannabis, I want to do that privately and secretively, and I don't want anybody to know. But if we can remove the stigma, or if we can provide like a nice, more upscale environment, we'll probably see a lot more people come into this industry. And those people, whether we like it or not, oftentimes it's the people who have more disposable income and who are a little afraid of the community or the culture that cannabis is sometimes seen as. Those are the people that we want to get into this industry, because they will have the affiliations to push regulations forward, or to help invest into a better consumption lounge, or to sponsor events that deserve to have a bigger spotlight so that we can continue. Like I can't stay in business if people don't buy the Judge Store, if people don't sponsor our events. So if I can find more brands, whether in cannabis or not, to say, cool, like this is an event that I want to be a part of, and this is what is helping to move cannabis in the right direction, upwards and to the right, those are the brands that we should have on board. And we're actively working on trying to get, Domino's and Taco Bell and other bigger brands that have a ton of budgets to be like, hey guys, I know you've said no to cannabis these past 10 years, but how about now? Now that some states are recreational, how about in this state? Or, hey, we're on the verge of potential federal legalization. Do you want to be the first people to have your name on this before everybody else and their mother opens the floodgates? That's a good opportunity for you. So hopefully, consumption lounges, dispensaries, educate, or consumers being educated, all of that will help turn this industry into just a better industry, and is not seen as an illicit business by all of these companies ranging from Google to America.
Yeah. 100%. So, we'll see where it goes and where this industry shapes and everything. It's an ever changing, landscape, and, I'm excited to see where it goes. I've been in this industry since 2013, and it's changed a lot since then. And I'm excited to see it. And I think we're on the right path. And if we keep fighting and we keep learning, I think we'll be fine, especially here in New Mexico. So, Kaz, thank you so much again for joining me today. It was a great episode. It was great to have you on. I'm excited for, the Best in Grass, and I'm excited to be there and, celebrate with all these people and everything. So, I guess I'll be seeing you here in about a month or so.
Yes, sir. Yeah, man. Appreciate you having me on. Really, grateful for the support. And yeah, I'll get you guys a bunch of tickets for you and your audience, so we can do some giveaways and some raffles and fun stuff like that. But yeah, May 20th, Oasis Event Center, North Albuquerque, cocktail attire. So make sure everybody is dressed to impress. We'll have some musical talent there, and we'll have a lot of good brands there showing up and showing out. And then obviously a good opportunity to really decide who's the best and figure out what people should be shopping for the day after. So yeah, let's be in touch about all that, volunteer groups or other, charity groups. And then, would love to promote this episode on our channel so that you guys can, get a little bit more exposure from anybody who's our audience.
Cool. I appreciate that, brother. Yeah, I'll make sure you get all the links, and we'll share it and everything with you. And I look forward to this. So, yeah, let me get your Instagram after this, after the recording and everything. We'll chat for a little bit. But thank you, everybody, for watching this week. I will be back with another episode, and hopefully I'll see you guys at Best in Grass. So I will see you next time. Make sure you like, subscribe, whatever you got to do to stay in the know. All right.